Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Focus on Tomorrow. For those who don't know, Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization which is located in Chicago, Illinois. You can find us at 107 West Van Buren Street in the Suite 202, Chicago, Illinois 60606. You can also visit our website at www.focus-on-tomorrow.org, or you can email us at info@focus-on-tomorrow.org. Today is a very special day because I am hosting today, which is I'm the instructor. Baker's not here today. He's not feeling a little too good, but we're going to have some fun, right? Today we are with Joanne Vena, who is the program director of Changing Worlds. How you doing today, Joanne?
I'm good.
You're doing good? Thank you so much for coming. I'm sorry I'm a little late. I know I've been running back and forth, but we're here now. We're here, we're having a good time. But the first question I want to know is, what's your mission behind Changing Worlds?
Changing Worlds was founded to really build inclusive communities of learners, and with the idea of primarily having kids investigate their identities, build better awareness of their own cultures, but also become more sensitive and more aware of the fact that their communities are a blend of many cultures and many identities.
So what's the history behind, like, Changing Worlds? I mean, where did this name actually start out from?
Yeah, Changing Worlds, I think, came from very specifically a project in Albany Park at Hibbard Elementary School. It was a project that our founder, Kay Berkson, she was a social worker who was also a photographer. She started doing this project where she was photographing different families at Hibbard School, realized that there were 19, 20, 30 different ethnic groups that were represented in the school, and decided to do a photo essay about 16 families. And from that, realized that the migration story is a universal story. That people came to Chicago and landed in Albany Park from all over the world. They all had their own story. They all had hopes, dreams, and wishes for what their future was going to look like, but they were also very rooted in the cultural and traditions that of their home country. So Changing Worlds was all about that. The fact that the world is always changing, and that we are always regrouping and readapting to where we end up.
So, of course, the founder uses photography and uses it for her skills, I mean, you personally, I'm guessing your organization is located in Albany Park, right?
We are now located in Pilsen.
In Pilsen, okay. But I mean, so starting off with an Albany Park, did you personally, did you see like a shift in cultures within it? Because you're saying, it's changing worlds, and there's all kind of, migration families and all kinds of different, ethnic groups out there. Like, how was it from the beginning to now? Like, was it different?
What's interesting is, like, when Changing Worlds was starting in Albany Park, my family, we were living in Albany Park. Oh. And we kept hearing about this organization that was working in schools and collecting the stories of different families and activating kids in hands-on workshops. So as our organization became a not-for-profit, we started to look at a wider menu of opportunities for kids to, and for adults and family members to start to articulate who they were and what their place was, not only in their neighborhoods but in the world. So now we do programs about the Great Migration, so African American kids getting to interview their parents and their grandparents about what it was like coming up from the South. We have students that are looking at different cultures to see how the stars, like astronomy, was interpreted by the Chinese, by the Mexican culture, by different cultures who revere the moon and the stars as important parts of their belief systems. And so we've kind of taken that idea of Changing Worlds and kind of blown it wide open.
See, that's something that's really intriguing to me because, like, what you guys are doing is kind of give them like a bit like an insight of their background, right? Like almost
exactly.
It's almost like it's not about looking forward. I mean, looking forward is great, but sometimes you have to look back sometime. As Kara Barker was saying, one of the artists I was studying, I mean, it's good to look forward, but looking back sometimes gives you that sense of like mobility of knowing of comfort, knowing where you come from, knowing where things come from, and just have like a sense of history.
And I also think that kids, just like grown-ups, you make assumptions that everyone lives like you,
Yeah.
or you wonder why everyone doesn't live like you. And so it's really great for the kids to do this conversation about their blended understanding of just the simplest things, like even just celebrating a particular holiday.
Yeah, exactly. And like, the fact that you guys are given that chance to like study themselves and study their history and their culture and where they came from. I just think it's just amazing. What you guys do.
What's the best is that it's never the same. Even if the big idea, and using the Great Migration as an example, even if the big idea is a Great Migration, we had some students looking at the Great Migration through the idea of traveling up through the South, but through the eyes of musicians. So looking at the idea of blues and jazz and gospel music, and how that was influenced by that transition.
From that transition, what they're doing.
And another project, when we did the Great Migration, we were having kids look at shelters and the way individuals had to kind of adapt when they were traveling to the different kinds of a mobile home.
Right, and that's I think that's what's really fascinating about it. But going back, we'll get to the programs now. But tell me a little about you. Like, what really inspired you to work with Change Your Worlds? Can you tell us a little bit of background?
Sure. I am originally a teaching artist. I moved to Chicago 30 years ago to go to grad school.
You're a Chicagoan now.
I am in Chicago now, more than half my life in Chicago.
Yes.
And, one of the things that intrigued me about this particular organization is I had spent a lot of time working in lots of different neighborhoods through my work at Columbia College. And what I realized is the part that I loved the most about my job at Columbia is when I really got to sit down with teachers to kind of talk about what the big ideas were to make their students become inventors of their own story. So this was a really perfect opportunity for me to kind of bring all the things I love together.
Right, and honestly, that's like what you did. I think that's a great example of what I'm trying to do. Because I basically did my own production, my own TV production, and I come from the Bryant Park neighborhood, so I'm basically like in between everything. I'm between Pilsen, I'm between Little Village, I'm between Gage Park. We're also Inglewood, so I'm like surrounded by so many different vibes and so many different cultures, around it, and I think that's what's really cool. And I want to do is like what you're saying is like just like the different methods, the different lifestyles of the cultures of different neighborhoods. I think that's what really brings a really good brightness to Chicago. You know what I mean? The fact that we have all these great ethnic groups from different neighborhoods, and it's just amazing, right?
It is. We take for granted because, like, we'll run to one neighborhood to eat a certain kind of food, and then we'll go to another neighborhood to go to a parade. And I think we kind of take for granted that the people that establish their lives there are really kind of building a new history for themselves.
Exactly, they're building a new history, and not only that, but they're bringing pride of where they come from. You know what I mean? Like you said, they're bringing pride of where they come from, and they're basically like they're loving where they're from. I mean, honestly, nobody should be ashamed of where they came from or what neighborhood. They should be proud, and they should really express themselves that way, and they should really show some kind of artistic level which you guys are opening up to them. And I just think that's just the best way to go at it. And not only that, but like describe the audience that you really serve is what it's like. If you can really get deep into it.
Yeah. Well, we work primarily with not only with classroom teachers, but we work with the 3rd grade through 8th grade primarily. Okay. We're doing some high school projects this year at Chicago Vocational High School, but a lot of our work is with 3rd through 8th graders. And what we're finding is this is the age, right, when they're starting to develop their own kind of perspectives about who's good, who's not, who's who's cool, who's not, and so this is an opportunity for them to kind of open their brains and their minds to that idea that everyone has something to share. So even we did a project in Pilsen last year which kind of dealt with the idea of gentrification, but gentrification through the eyes of students looking for peacemakers in their neighborhood. And so we had the students identify individuals that they wanted to come and tell their story. And we had people who were 70 years old who had lived there way before it was a Mexican neighborhood. And then we had like the new guy who just opened the record store, you know, the white guy who bought the building.
So it's like three different transitions of of people who've living from that neighborhood.
Exactly. So we had, and then we had everything in between. We had folks that grew up in the neighborhood and started their businesses there, and had their businesses well established. So it was exciting for the students because the students, you know, they look around and they think that neighborhood was always that neighborhood. And they don't realize that it was a Bohemian neighborhood, it was a Polish neighborhood.
Exactly.
It was a neighborhood that was much more blended in the 50s than it is now.
Exactly.
And now it's blending in a different way. So
which is I think this is really like insane almost because I mean Bryant Park was actually a Polish neighborhood too. I just learned that.
Yeah.
I heard of Bryant Park was almost like a suburb within the town. That was like the suburbs of the city almost.
Yeah,
and
that's
like,
interesting.
If you just see the transition of like now it's just predominantly Hispanic because I don't know like so going into that like so culture really does play like an important role within your curriculum, right?
It does.
Right?
It does. It's having students identify their own cultural practices and traditions, but also having them think about the concept of culture, like what comprises culture, and that the classroom space itself is the culture, and how do they respond and how they live within that space as well. So we go from like the microcosm to a much bigger sense. Now I have to say with the election. Last year we were doing work about the U.S. Constitution with 7th graders in the Little Village neighborhood, and even then the kids couldn't stop talking about, the Trump phenomenon.
Right.
And how they were, really concerned about what was going to happen. They were really concerned about whether they were going to be ostracized or if in the worst case scenario, every horrible, Gestapo kind of military movie that you've ever seen, people are going to be pulled out of their homes, out of their beds in the middle of the night. And so there was a lot of discussion about, the political process, and it made me realize that as 8th graders, this was really the first election that they were watching. Because they were too young before. Right. 4 years ago, they were only 8 years old. So
they really have any kind of understanding.
So this had a huge impact, on what this election looked like to them.
Right. So from that age range that you do from 3rd to 8th grade, do you think that really helps with their self-identity of their own? Because you said identity is really important to them, right?
I think it does. I mean, I think the one thing more than it affirms who they are,
right.
But it also gives openness to the idea that other people live a different way.
Yeah.
So we, in the same conversation about the Constitution, we were talking about how different amendments had changed over the years. So we were talking about gay marriage,
Yep.
we were talking about immigration rules, we were talking about privacy acts. Things that the Supreme Court's looking at all the time. And, there were kids in the room that it was a big confession for, someone to say to a small group of people that they were working with, like my aunt is gay and I'm really happy that she gets to marry her partner now. And this is not anything that would necessarily become a public knowledge thing. But allow them to open up about the kinds of people that they actually were important to them in their lives.
Right.
That may not be the same as other people.
And that's basically self-identity nutshell.
And having that whole idea of accepting people for who they are.
Great. I mean, yeah, you're totally right on that. But now that we're shifting into going back to the programs now, you also have the ACL program, right? So
right.
Can you tell us what ACL stands for, and how the program actually works?
Yeah, it's the arts and literacy. It's arts literacy. ACL is Arts, Culture, and Literacy Connections program, And that program is really designed to have an artist and a writer go in and work with a classroom of up to 30 kids with their teachers to explore some new ideas.
Okay.
The ideas can be linked, like we were just talking about, to studying the Constitution of seventh graders, or it could be something that is entirely different. It could be an oral history project that they decide to do where they come up with a big question and they go out and seek the answers to those
So
questions.
is it like something that you guys come up with or the students come up with?
Well, actually, we work with the teachers first, and then we fill it out with the students.
Right, just to see how like
Right.
process with them, right?
And then the students, not only are they working with the writer to write their own work, but oftentimes the writing informs the art making.
Oh wow, okay. So picking off to that, why is art integration so important within the program, within the class?
Well, the great thing about arts integration is arts integration gives an opportunity for all kinds of learners to be able to express what they know and what they understand about a certain topic.
Okay.
So if you're building an idea and students aren't comfortable necessarily with writing, or say they're a very active learner, so they want to act out their understanding of a certain topic with something that they've written an original writing, it allows the teacher to understand through the arts what they understand about a certain topic, but also how they are internalizing the information that they've learned and how they're interpreting it back, bringing it back out.
Wow. See, so it's like the way you guys are talking about, it's like these kids really have a chance to open up their minds almost.
Oh, yeah.
Really, you guys really give them a chance to see, like, what are you feeling, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are you, what's really going on? It's basically, it's easy for the way you're explaining it's just easy for a kid to just go up there and just talk about something or discuss an issue that's going on, And I think that's really important, but at the same time, you also have what is called culinary response teaching practices. So,
I'm sorry, which one?
the culinary response, the responsive teaching practices.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
the
so what is that
culturally
exactly?
responsive.
Yeah.
Well, being culturally responsive when you're teaching is having students feel that they have the ability to express their opinions, but also looking, similar to arts integration, looking at ways to connect to a subject through their family connections and through their community connections.
Right.
So, looking at a larger topic and saying, I feel this because I see this in my neighborhood, or I feel this because I was told a story about something like this that happened in my family. So culturally responsive teaching is having kids also be positively received for what they bring to the topic, rather than saying, like, well, that's not in the textbook, so that's not the answer to the question. So, I mean, hip-hop really is like a culturally responsive art form.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's an art form that, builds information and understanding of a particular community, but through music, poetry, and the arts.
Oh my God, hip hop is basically is kind of like a gateway just for us youngsters. I'm young. That's what I'm saying. I'm so young, so it's like I understand. Like, yeah, hip hop. I think hip hop is a good way to just just hit it right there. But going to what you're saying about teaching. You have an interesting title saying that you guys are teaching artists, which
Right.
is has like a unique sound to it. So what's the difference between like a teaching artist and like from a regular teacher? What's the difference?
Yeah, we were talking about that. Teaching artists for me is a topic, is a term for an artist who brings their own personal skills and their own personal professional life into like a studio setting with students, but then allows them to understand from that knowledge base and that skill base what's possible for the students. So it's not like a craft class where there's kind of a model and it's like we're all going to create this model.
Right.
I mean, it's more about, let's look at someone like a Kara Walker or someone who's dealing with volatile issues, but is using black and white, like black cutout silhouettes,
Right.
which is a pretty simple kind of process. but her scenarios that she creates as a visual artist are very complex, and they tell really complex stories. So a very simple technique can be shown to the students by looking at examples of other artists' work. How complicated you can make something.
Right. So yeah, I think piggyback off to what you're saying. I think saying that you're a teaching artist. Yeah, I think that's totally right. I think coming in with your own curriculum, your own kind of style,
right,
with it, your own your own interpretation of it. I think is much better than coming in as you're saying, as a teacher, because stuff is very complex, and you have your own way of just expressing your kind of art. Everyone has that. It's crazy. Everyone has that. So I think with that, it's just something that the program's really, really doing good. But speaking of Change Your World, because now we have to wrap up. Do you have any upcoming events for the audience should know about?
We have events usually in the late spring. We have an annual student exhibit, and that will be a survey of all the work we're doing. Right now, we're working on doing the concept of peace and what peace means to young people, and that'll be translated through their words, but not only their words, but their images, or potentially small scenes, plays.
Okay.
And I'm thinking about that maybe being the theme of the show this year. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how 5 different schools interpret the idea of peacemaking very differently.
It's because you definitely. Especially if you put it in that aspect of peace. There's so many ways of thinking about peace. And one last thing, also one before. Do you have anything? How can the audience know about Changing World?
Look on our website. It's www.changingworlds.org, and we're just actually going through a revision right now of our website. So there should be a lot of new stuff on there soon.
All right. Thank you. All right. So for everyone who doesn't know, for people who do not know, Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization which is located in Chicago, Illinois. You can find us on the website at www.focus-on-tomorrow.org, or you can email us at info@focus-on-tomorrow.org. I want to thank Joanne, and I want to thank Focus and CAN TV, and everyone have a great night.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.